What's going on, everyone? Scott here, and welcome back to the channel. So, Survivor Season 50, Episode 10 is here. We are really coming down the home stretch here of this 50th season of Survivor. In this episode, we got the auction, we got the Mr. Beast twist, whatever's going to happen in that one, plus a 2-hour episode. Last week, we did see Christian go home, but before we do jump into this episode, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. A little more Survivor 50 content on the channel, so just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. Now back at camp, awkward vibes because Emily attempted to turn on Ozzy, and they've been together pretty much this whole game. Ozzy credits his social skills this time around. Instead of just being this challenge beast and, that side of things, he's really has improved on his social side of the game, which has helped him tremendously so far in this game. Emily is kind of devastated. She's never been left out on the wrong side of the vote, as she says, and she felt that she needed to choose between Ozzy and Christian, and obviously chose Christian and was backfiring a little bit now back at camp. But Ozzy jokes around with Devins about the vote and not playing his idol. Devins is like, if I get angry, I'll make a bad decision. But if I'm having fun, then he'll either make a good decision or a fun bad decision, which could play into later in this episode, but we'll get more on that later. So he says to Emily, hey, we're two psychopaths with nothing to lose. Let's come up with some crazy stuff to do. Y'all wanted Rick Devins back? Well, if he has to play the game on his own, he'll cause chaos, as he says. Next morning, day 19, so we got 1 week left here. Aubrey feels like we're at the point in the game where the big moves start. Tries to figure out where the chess pieces are, where she needs to move those pieces to get a spot for her at the end. Devins comes clean to the group about the fake idol. He's kind of like, I didn't think he could get much legs out of that fake idol. Obviously, everything that he did in his season of Survivor, and didn't think there was much legs to this one either. Got him through 2 tribal councils, essentially, so he comes clean about that. But Joe is absolutely bewildered that someone would lie on Survivor once again, and wants to get Devins out of this game. And him and Ozzy agree that him and Emily need to be out of the game. We head to the Survivor auction. Nice flashback with some old Survivor auction moments as well. Each get $500. You can share money, which sometimes is allowed, sometimes isn't allowed. Only allowed to share food if it's a shareable item and whatnot. And then no risk to lose your vote either, which we have seen some of that with the new era Survivor auctions as well. If you had the most money left, whatever the case may be. Every item is either comfort or chaos, or it could be a combination of both. You won't know until you get it if there is chaos associated with it. A good size auction as well, including the loved one letters for $20 for everyone at the end. But those loved one letters do come with an equal dose of chaos. Enter Mr. Beast with an auspicious briefcase. The Mr. Beast Super Beware Advantage. We'll find out tonight at Tribal Council what this entails. The auction's over, and instead of going back at camp, heading right to an immunity challenge. Guaranteed spot in the final 9. Comes down to a showdown between Tiffany and Ozzy, and Tiffany wins immunity. And she gets emotional afterwards because she's like, I was voted out on day 19 last time, but not this time. She's safe, guaranteed spot in the final 9 for Tiffany. Now, an afternoon of wonder on who will be going home for one and what this Mr. Beast Super Beware Advantage has in store. But back at camp, everyone takes a minute to read their letters from home and kind of get rejuvenated for these conversations that will ensue the rest of the afternoon and into Tribal Council tonight. It's always an awesome moment, everyone reading their letters. And Aubrey says that she thinks she can steal some things from what Michelle did, obviously Michelle Fitzgerald, did to win her first season on Co Wrong, because no one is out here trying to make the same mistake twice. Aubrey, Jonathan, and Stephanie talk about what's the move. Aubrey's afraid of starting to run out of numbers to do things. We heard her talk about this earlier in the episode with kind of those chess pieces and where she needs to move them to get a spot at the end. Devins is such a smokescreen, Jonathan believes, to use him as that smokescreen to get out Ozzy. Now, he sees not just the physical side of Ozzy playing, obviously, one of the most physical dominant players Ozzy is in the history of Survivor. Obviously, he's right on the precipice of tying Boston Rob for the most individual immunity wins, and then what he's able to do around camp, all that stuff. But he does see, which was a point Ozzy made coming into the season that he wanted to change about his game, was about how he's more cerebral, and that social game that we heard Ozzy talk about earlier in this episode. But Jonathan also lies a little bit to Stephanie about Ozzy dropping her name. Like, how do you feel about Stephanie? which we'll put a pin in that for more on that later. But they bring in Devons, and Devons says that he'll talk to Emily, and Jonathan will talk to Joe to try to get this group to go for Ozzy. Emily's obviously in because she just voted for Ozzy last night. Joe's not sure if he should push his agenda of wanting to get Devons out or just go with the group and go with Ozzy right now. The main goal from you have that side of things trying to shift the vote. The other side was Cirie, and everyone on Cirie's side is you don't want the power to shift to Stephanie and Jonathan. Stephanie walks right up and lies to Cirie and Tiffany about splitting the vote between Devons and Emily. Like, yep, that's the move, okay. And Cirie is so incredible at this game. She can tell, like, Stephanie's like, just not comfortable, and she can tell it in her body language and her face that she's lying about this plan that's in place. Now, right after, Cirie fills Ozzy in that they're kind of coming for him again. Cirie, Ozzy, Rizzo, Tiff, and an extra vote for Stephanie. There's a plan thrown out there. Ozzy is also now ready to go home with an idol. We've seen this happen before, as he said. Not ready to do that this time. Ozzy talks to Jonathan and says to put the vote on Stephanie. And now the votes are all upside down because why would... it just still doesn't make sense why Ozzy would turn to Jonathan and say to turn the votes to Stephanie, because it seems fairly obvious. Obviously, we're not out there. We don't see all the extra stuff and all the conversations, but it seems very obvious that Jonathan and Stephanie are close and working together. So I'm guessing Ozzy just thinks that he was that close with Jonathan that he can tell him this and they can flip the vote to Stephanie and Jonathan would go with him, that he's closer, there. But so that obviously didn't go as planned. So now Stephanie tells Jonathan about the steal a vote, and Jonathan's like, you got to use it tonight, essentially. Now Stephanie goes right to Cirie and confronts her about potentially voting for her. And Cirie's like, that was a plan that was thrown out there. I'm not going to say no to any plan that's thrown out there. I'm going to hear the plan, be like, okay. So that's that. Now Stephanie wants to flip the vote to Cirie. Or Devin said, what if we flip the vote to Rizzo? He's not going to play his idol. Stephanie is going to steal Ozzy's vote. Seems like really the potentially only sure thing that's sticking is Stephanie's going to use her steal a vote tonight, and it seems like on Ozzy. This is probably as chaotic as I've seen a pre-vote before a tribal council in the 50 seasons of Survivor that we have here. But Devins is ready to cause some chaos and ready to blow up the whole tribe because they included him in a lot of conversations and information he didn't know, like Stephanie's steal a vote and, who was potentially going after who. So we'll see what he all brings out at Tribal Council. And we do head to Tribal Council. Aubrey and Devins agree they're going to blow it up. They're just going to go all for it, put everything out there. The Mr. Beast Beware advantage certainly is topic of conversation and top of mind for everyone because it kind of drove all the paranoia all afternoon. Stephanie says there was a simple thing to do, and Devins kind of took a little bit of exception to that because he said, well, I'm the simple thing. So, and then he goes into a nice, long, detailed story, essentially airing out everyone's dirty laundry and tea from all afternoon. Step by step, what happened. He's like, after I read my letters, I get approached about this, about Ozzy, and then there's plan this, and then they're so focused on this plan that they actually reveal Stephanie's steal a vote potential, and so spills all this tea and then makes a pitch to Cirie, Ozzy, Tiffany, Rizzo, and Emily to get out one of the 3 people without idol that's targeting these people. He's like, why waste a vote on me? And Jonathan and Stephanie are very defensive, and Stephanie does say that she does have the extra or the steal a vote, but Stephanie's like, I'm not that stupid to lead a vote. I'd never go against Ozzy. And I do like Rizzo kind of saying it too, and he kind of starts to come out and say it like that's kind of crazy that you wouldn't say a name, and she corrects him like I wouldn't say a name first and go with it, but Rizzo is kind of like, no, you come out here, you got to say a name, you got to have a plan, and you got to stick to it, and if you want something to happen, you got to go make it happen. If a name's thrown out there, and they were very defensive about that. Cirie's just cracking up because she's like, it's been like this all afternoon long, or all day long, she says, and nonstop combos, and as Jeff said, the single most fascinating tribal council. So let's just address the elephant in the room then. Bring in Mr. Beast. The Beware advantage Mr. Beast Super Beware Advantage is on the table. We open up the briefcase, see what's inside. It's a gold coin. One side is the Mr. Beast logo, the other side is torches. One person will flip the coin. If it lands on what you call, then you're safe, you get an immunity idol, and the prize money for Survivor 50 doubles to $2 million, courtesy of Mr. Beast. Now, on the flip side, if it does not land on what you call, the prize money stays at $1 million, and you don't vote anyone out because the person who flipped it will go home. Now the question is, how do we figure out who's going to flip this coin? And if you can't decide on who's going to flip the coin, then everyone draws a rock, besides obviously Tiffany, with her having the individual immunity necklace. But Devins is all in to flip it. He's like, oh yeah, like bring it on, baby. I'm all here for it. Now there's obviously some question about this because Devins was a possible target too, and obviously the power of being safe this tribal and getting an immunity idol as well. There's a lot out there. But then it's like you have the potential to add an extra $1 million to the prize money for this season for everyone. It's the ultimate shot in the dark in general. And Aubrey's worried about what happens if there is a vote. You know, if Devins does this and is safe, then what's the vote? Is she potentially someone that could be in danger? But eventually says, get it. So as Devin says, as Rizzo mentioned, can't come out here and play scared. Historic moment goes with the Mr. Beast side. Biggest stakes ever on Survivor. And flips the coin, and it does come up the Mr. Beast side. So with all of that, he's safe tonight, first of all. He gets an idol, and the prize money has now doubled to $2 million. So with all that being said, Devins and Tiffany are now safe. But now we are back kind of to the beginning with, all right, now what's the vote? Even though it didn't seem like Devins was going to be the vote, there was a couple other plans that were branching out. Where are we actually going now? Live tribal starts, obviously, and we see Aubrey's name out there. We see Stephanie's name out there. And we start to get to the vote. Stephanie does steal a vote, but she steals Devins' vote. Not sure why. I'm assuming maybe him kind of blowing up tribal a little bit had a little bit to do with that decision on her front. But we get to the vote, and Stephanie goes home. All the votes were for Stephanie, besides the 2 votes that were for Aubrey, which were from Stephanie voting twice. So next week, Devins is static. Obviously, the $2 million prize money now. Lots of uncertainty. Emily says that she thinks she can convince him to play it on me, assuming she's talking about an idol. Now, who's she talking about? We know 2 people with an idol, Rizzo and Ozzy with idols right now. Talking about one of them, I'm assuming. Aubrey says biggest moment of the game, and it's now or never. So we'll just say this. There's been a lot of talk about the twists on this season. Have all the twists worked? Let's see if we go through the twists right now. We've had the Billie Eilish boomerang idol. We've had the Zach Brown visit reward thing. I don't think that was really a twist. Then you had the Jimmy Fallon one just last week with Christian. And then we've had this one, the Mr. Beast one. By far and away of the 4 twists, this was the best twist by far. And the reception I've seen just from recording this a little bit right after the episode here on Wednesday night, it seems like a lot of people are in agreement that was actually a pretty cool twist. And I think too, like I'll say, I'm not saying I loved all the twists, like the Zach Brown, the Billie Eilish, the Jimmy Fallon, the other ones. I'm not saying I loved them, but I think some of them were a little overblown. People saying how bad they were. I don't think that they were all super bad. I think some of them were, like the Zach Brown one was definitely probably the most, just because there wasn't really any stakes. It was just the kind of reward portion, and people felt spent too much time with Zach Brown confessionals and learned about this. Then at that point we had seen of certain players, and I tend to agree with that part. But I mean, that was a good reward. But I agree that they probably could have cut that down a little bit, and let's see a little bit more of maybe how the people back at camp felt and get to a little bit more of the Survivor game. The Billie Eilish one, I love Billie Eilish, and I think that's actually a cool idea for the actual reward. I just absolutely hate that my favorite in this game and my winner pick of this game, Genevieve, kind of got her twice for that idol, and should have maybe had two individual immunity idols that she found, but they were the boomerang idols, so she had to send them away. That's tough. And then the Jimmy Fallon one, kind of same thing. I like the idea, but I think Christian was so entertaining out there that and he had a good story like to this season. It seems like he's been driving a lot of this season. He kind of the twist got him essentially, and I don't think that was the only reason he went home. Definitely not. But again, I think the twist was a good idea. But this one, by far and away, was a really cool twist, in my opinion. And it also provided that like hysteria, paranoia, like uncertainty, and that's what's incredible about Survivor, and that's what had you on the edge of your seat all night, all episode for this one. So I thought it was really, really, really good. And now that we look at the final 9 in this one, and we do a little bit of housekeeping where we're at. Now it seems like Jonathan is really kind of at the bottom. I'd put Joe down there as well, but he's actually had a decent working relationship, I think, a little bit with like Cirie, Tiffany. Like he's been in some of these conversations as well. I don't think it's as overtly like, with the Jonathan and Stephanie. Even if he was part of that group, it doesn't seem like he's as far as that side. It seems like Jonathan is, at the bottom right now with Stephanie going home. Even though he did flip his vote this time and did vote for Stephanie. But Jonathan seems at the bottom right now. Then when we look at everything else, I think you still have the middle of Devins and Emily going to cause that chaos. And that's that. So you kind of have Jonathan and Joe kind of in one pod right here with, Jonathan maybe a little more alone, not as many relationships right now, and Joe right there. Then you have the middle, kind of, sort of Devins and Emily right there. But then you have I think it's safe to say maybe the 4 of Cirie, Ozzy, Rizzo, who we've known work together for a long time. You can kind of link Tiffany into that group now as well. So you got a 4 right there. You got the 2 kind of right there at the bottom. And then you can throw Aubrey in the middle as well. So you kind of got Jonathan and Joe. You got kind of the middle with, Devins, Aubrey, and Emily. And then you got, the 4, as I kind of said. It's, the 3 plus, Tiffany. But I think I'm considering them a 4 now. And Tiffany, Cirie, Rizzo, and Ozzy. So that's where we're kind of at. And listen, of that 4 that we said a couple weeks ago, really pulling for someone from that group of 4 to win. You're looking at that. We still have Rizzo's idol. We still have Ozzy's idol. And we still have the extra vote that Cirie has. So a lot of ammunition going into the final 9 here. And, we're under a week to go in the game now, essentially starting next episode. So a lot to still be decided, but quite a bit of tools in their tool chest still going into this last week, less than a week stretch here in this game. We'll see if they can make the right moves to get the ball to the end and pull it out. But anyway, that'll do for this one. I thought this was an incredible episode. Maybe second best episode of the season. Right now, I'd probably have to put it first, look back at everything afterwards, but that was definitely very entertaining, and I thought I really did like the twist, as I said, too. So anyway, another incredible episode of Survivor 50. We'll be back next week to recap next week's episode, but that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.